another conversation with an old man. So I'm almost 80 years old, and half of my life, more than half of my life now, has been dealing with feminism. I didn't know anything about feminism when I returned from Vietnam. Never even heard the term. I got out of the Army in 1970, went in 1967, Vietnam 1968 to 1969. And when I got out of the Army, I started hearing about feminism. The world before Vietnam, my world, even a bigger world, the whole world pivoted around Vietnam War. That's a subject for another conversation. But this one pivot point is this crazy notion of feminism. There's, Judaism and Marxism and Catholicism and Hinduism and Buddhism and feminism. Not that I know of, there's really no masculinism, but there is a feminism. It always strikes me, and always has, as a little odd. So here's the argument that I heard in the 1970s when I returned to the college campus, that the life of women was so unfair. They were so unfairly treated, and we had to justify this terrible thing. In the anti-war movement of the late 60s and early 70s, of which I became a part when I joined the Vietnam Veterans Against the War, the women's movement wanted to tag along with the anti-war movement, and I would hear, and I would listen to, men are not fair to us. They don't treat us well, and we should be treated better. We're subject to sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual battery, all of those things, which I think are really terrible and should all be eradicated if possible. I don't want to be misunderstood. But when I compared the stories of the young women that I knew, including women that had abortions in the period when there were no legal abortions. 3 women that I knew had illegal abortions, and that I know of, that talked to me about it. So I'm not immune, anti-woman, nothing like that. But they're confused. I've never actually had the nerve. Well, that's not true. It's not a matter of nerve. It's a matter of I don't want to fight with people. But my thoughts are around the women of the 1970s, the late 60s. I think when I came back from the war, the brassieres had disappeared. Oh gosh, the whole world changed in 1 year. And I'm thinking of the guys that I knew in Vietnam and the experiences that they had because they were young men. Who suffered more? A woman who was maltreated or a man that is maltreated? Why was there ever a feminist issue when the other side of that coin is the abuse of young men? At that time, it was mandatory that young men registered for the draft. Young men went and fought and killed and suffered and was wounded. Women, too, they took care of the men. They were the nurses. Now, we've made great strides in equalizing the men and the women. The only problem is that we've gone in the wrong direction. The right direction would have been to elevate the men to the sensitivity and receptivity of the woman. But what we've actually done is degraded the woman down to the level of being masculine. Things have turned upside down. I remember in the Gulf War, I don't remember which one, but hearing of a couple that were both in the military, and he, the husband and father, was on deployment in the Mideast. I don't remember the war. And the mother got sent on deployment too. So they turned their child over to, I don't know who, I don't remember, it's not even relevant, but a culture that not only allows but praises women to give over their infant and young children so that those women, can go halfway or all the way or some faraway place to participate in a war. How does that elevate anybody? This is 2025. I try to stay current on the social issues of what's going on now, as well as the international and political issues. And the confusion of men and women has ceased to be funny. It ceases to be amusing. It's downright dangerous. I think there's a picture of Professor Chen Cheng over my left shoulder. I don't know if it's visible or not. I think it is, but he's my teacher's teacher, and Tai Chi Chuan and Chinese thinking. He was a doctor, and his field of specialty was in women's health. He says the state of a country or the health of a country or health of a nation is dependent on the women. The women nurture the fetus, grow a baby, and then take care of that baby until it can start to take care of itself. Initially, it's the mother. Now, I have limited experience. I'm a father of one. It was absolutely natural for me to make the house and the home peaceful and safe so the mother and the child could relax in a secure environment and grow in a healthy way. There was no problem. There was a man's role and there was a woman's role. I was far from absent as a father. I was involved at every level, at every age of my son's life. He's now 35 years old. So it wasn't a question of being nurturing. It's the question of she has the titties. She has the milk. Of course, she expressed milk and put it in a bottle. She was a working musician. When she went on jobs, it was my job to feed him. He didn't like it. Matter of fact, he didn't eat it. He didn't drink out of the bottle. All he did was cry. It didn't work so well. Of course, if we had started earlier, we could have conditioned him because eventually he would eat. But no, there was a woman's job and there was a man's job. I remember there were a few actresses very public about their disdain for men and how they would raise their famous children without fathers, and what a glorious thing that would be for all of humanity. I don't remember which one of those actresses they were. I have an idea, but I don't actually know. And then I started hearing this term called toxic masculinity. And I'm thinking, what is going on? Why are people separating? Besides the political reasons, I'm not going to argue that men and women are treated the same. I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing that the life of the woman is extremely difficult. I'm not arguing that. The life of the man is extremely difficult. Life is difficult. There are different kinds of difficulties. When they team up together, procreation can happen. I believe now that there's a way for laboratory procreation. I remember reading something. Artificially creating life, men would no longer be needed. All this is unnecessary. It's not unnecessary. It's manipulative and it's destructive. To even mouth the words that I'm doing now in a public forum where I could be questioned and rebuttals can be offered, there would be fight in no time. Whenever I would lecture on or read from classical Chinese, the teachings of Confucius, and every time they say mankind, the feminists in my student body would object. Not all of them. There were intelligent ones and there were less intelligent ones, well, rather more reactive ones. It's difficult changing pronouns when I'm reading from text and it says he and I say them or he. All the pronoun thing that's been going on now, blah, blah, blah. I was trying to do it because, I don't want to make the students unhappy. I learned my lesson. So I just want to finish by saying I want to offer to people to open their thinking on the problem of what's perceived as an inequality between men and women. I'm not sure that if you weighed the trauma of the woman of the age that I was when I went into the army and into the war, I don't know which one is going to be worse, the woman that was raped or the man that was killing and raping. It's even vulgar to make such a comparison. We have to elevate the conversation to one of humanity and developing the masculine and the feminine and anything that lies in between, and allowing all people to flourish in their natural state. I could probably talk more about it, but it tires me.